Good morning and welcome to Making Peace with Money with your host, Laurie Lamantia, Professor, CPO, and Prosperity Coach. Get ready to master your life and your money, not the other way around. Now, here is your host, Laurie Lamantia.
Good morning, and welcome to our show today, which is a journey into the land of affluence with our special guest, John Randolph Price, who is the author of the Abundance book. And today what I'm hoping to do with John is to discuss his book and really tease out some of these really powerful concepts that he shares with us. Some of the concepts which I found really fascinating were that you are your own money and more, and that money in its original form, energy, has already been distributed equally among all souls on the planet. And this is just one of the powerful concepts that John Price talks about in his book, the Abundance book. So I'm hoping that we really learn on a deeper level and on another level some of the powerful concepts that I've been working with, and I hope you find valuable too as we share our time together. So John, I'd like to welcome you to our show today. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's a great pleasure being with you, Laurie.
Oh, thank you. And just a little bit more about John. He is an internationally known lecturer and author of 18 nonfiction books incorporating ancient wisdom, contemporary metaphysics, and spiritual philosophy. Several of his books have been national bestsellers, and in 1981, with the publishing of his first book, Super Beings, he and his wife, Jan, formed the Quartus Foundation for Spiritual Research, of which John is the chairman of the board. And he's since been a keynote speaker for many organizations, including the National Peace Symposium. And another thing that I just thought was so touching was that John and his wife were the originators of the World Healing Day that began on December 31st, 1986. With over 500 million participants worldwide. And every year on December 31st, the same event happens on the same date. And they even won an award called the Light of God Expressing Award by the Association of Unity Churches. And the organization, which has speaking and classes, you can find all about John's organization at Quartus, www.quartus.org. And you can just email quartus@quartus.org, which is the best way to contact John. So let's get started. I'm really excited John, one of the things that's so wonderful is I get to hear your take on the Abundance book. What was it that you were trying to share? If you could give us a little bit of an overview of what the Abundance book intent was.
It's very interesting. When we decided or were led to form the World Healing Day event on December the 31st of 86, I began a book called The Planetary Commission. And as a part of Peace on Earth, I realized that there must be a break in this thought of scarcity and shortage and lack and limitation. And I wrote a chapter in that book, the book of the Planetary Commission, about finances and about abundance. And the whole idea was to lift the collective consciousness into a new dimension, a new frequency, so that if we were going to have peace on earth and goodwill toward all, there would have to be a break in that framework of lack and limitation so that we could have more abundance materializing on this planet. And there was such an acceptance of this concept and the 40-day plan that we took that chapter, expanded on it, and came up with the Abundance book. And it has been a national bestseller since I would say the late 80s, and it continues to do very well. The whole idea is that there really isn't any scarcity anywhere in this world. There is no scarcity. There is no lack. There is no futility. Abundance is everywhere. And if we can understand that supply, abundance, substance, the power, is everywhere present, then we can see that the manifestation of money can be a simple process if we can get our heads on straight.
I totally agree. I have to admit, though, I don't have my head on straight yet, so I'm looking for your help here.
You know, we go back to the ancient wisdom, the mystery schools of Greece, and thousands of years ago, and they were teaching what we today consider new thought.
Right.
They were teaching that it is how you think and how you feel and how you see and visualize that shapes the experiences and the forms that are manifest in your life. And to have abundance, to have, let's call it wealth, to have the riches of this universe in manifest form, we have to think properly. We have to feel, and we have to see. Seeing being a creative imagination that brings it into focus in the way of intentions, in the way of, we ask people at our recent mystery school, what do you want? And I know it's you're supposed to say, thou shalt not want, but that is not appropriate when we're looking at the vision of a new way of living and a new life here in this world. So what do you want? And if people say, well, I would like to be financially independent. I would like to be experience well-being physically. I would like to have a more productive relationships and so forth. Well, let's get the head on straight. Let's begin to understand the dynamics of this and get into the process, the creative process of manifesting all that we need. And it's, with people have said, well, is it easy? It's simple. It is a simple process. But I asked what I call a super being, a very, very wise man, one of the most enlightened individuals that I'd never met, and I said, why don't more people have all that they could possibly need in this world? And he says, because they're too lazy. They don't have the discipline and they don't have the dedication. And I thought, well, I could look at myself and say the same thing, because up until, we began to research and write the book, The Super Beings, I was not dedicated. I was not disciplined. I was in the advertising agency business, and, it was dog eat dog, and you fight for the next bone. And it wasn't until I entered into the spiritual dynamics, spiritual communications, that I began to see that all things are possible, that we don't have to really put up with anything, that we can have wonderful, fulfilling lives, a life more abundant is what we've been promised. So that was the whole basis, our foundation for the writing of the Abundance book.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm going to follow up with that discipline and dedication a little bit here. What kind of discipline? What kind of dedication?
Well, for example, when you wake up in the morning, a lot of people, we all look at the day ahead, the day the now day, and we think, oh, let's see, what is going to be going on in my world today? Most people think negatively. As a way of waking up and starting a day, there's not a lot of joy. There's not a lot of, oh, thank God for this magnificent day. And with excitement and enthusiasm and getting out of bed and beginning to look at all the positive aspects of this day, because we create our own reality. No one creates it for us. No one has authority over us. We are our own masters of our own destiny. So with our thoughts and with our feelings and with our creative imaging, we shape the day. We shape the kind of day we're going to have. And that takes discipline. We have to, because, we can just kind of float along like a log in a river that bounces off one side and then the other. And then we wonder that night, why didn't the day go well? Why did I have a problem? The truth is we have no problems. There is no such a thing as a problem. There is no such a thing as a need. And if we focus on our needs, we're creating more needs. We focus on our problems, we're creating more problems. And I know people are going to shake their head and say, John's lost his mind. Well, it works. If we work it, it works. If we can get our minds focused on what it is that we desire in life and the kind of life that we want to live, and focus on that, and create through imaging and create through affirmative prayer, we're going to have the kind of life that we want. And
that sounds a lot easier than going to the health club.
It's as simple as that. When we are totally enthused and totally dedicated to creating a new life for us, it's going to happen, and that's a guarantee.
This totally, it's so powerful, and I think that it's so simple, but it's a daily practice and a daily decision that I have to admit I'm kind of get lax at, just like I also eat too much chocolate. I get lazy. But I really appreciate what you're saying. We're actually coming into a break here, and I want to talk a little bit more about this that it's always there. The sufficiency, abundance is always there. And on some level, we're saying no to it versus it deciding not to participate in our lives. And I'd also like you to talk a little bit about your 40-day prosperity abundance process. So when we get back from the break, that's where we're going to head. And I'd also like to encourage people to call in if you have a question for John and you do want to put him to task about, if I don't necessarily believe what you're saying, please call. Our number here is 866-472-5790, and this is an amazing opportunity to ask someone who I consider a wonderful expert and who's been working this lifestyle for so long, and he's a guru. Call and ask any question you want. And the question I'm going to ask after the break, John, to be honest, is, okay, I want to win the lottery. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome back. And we're talking with John Randolph Price, who is the author of the Abundance Book. And if you would like to get more information about him and his work, his email is quartus@quartus.org. And there's so many things I want to ask you, John, but I want to honor what I said before the break. Okay, I want to win the lottery. Now what?
Welcome to the club. Everybody wants to win the lottery.
Why?
And the people, we've done some research in that area. The people who have won the lottery were in positions to where that they didn't even think about it from the standpoint of a possibility. I'm thinking of people in Texas that have won the lottery. It was not a strong desire. They just happened to put $1 down and buy a ticket, and were shocked when they won it. And I thought this was kind of interesting because the more we focus on the, let's call it the visible form, the less the opportunity to win because of the vibration and consciousness. Now, this may sound kind of strange, but even in the 40-day prosperity plan that's in the little abundance book, if we focus on money too much, then the money diminishes. If we focus on the source of the money, the substance that appears visibly as money, then we are opening the channel for a greater opportunity for wealth in our lives. And one thing that we can't outline, if we're working with for example, the 40-day prosperity plan, or working with affirmative prayers, or working with creative imagination and visualization, if we focus on how it is to come, then we're shutting the door, because outlining is a no-no as far as the creative energy of the universe. We can't tell it how to do it. And if we try to do it, we're shutting the door. So the whole idea is to, in our minds, if we want to have a greater prosperity in our lives, we think of the whole idea of prosperity. We think of the idea of abundance, but we don't think in terms of the money, and how to get the money. We let spirit, our source, the power within, take care of that. And I want to bring up one thing that my wife Jan and I have found that really does work to accelerate this whole program, and that is based on a dream that I had in the early part of our spiritual communications career. I closed down my advertising agency, and we formed the Cordis Foundation. And without even thinking about money, we had none. I mean, we thought we were going to have plenty to start this new venture in life, but we quickly ran out. And, of course, I was doing about everything I could think of to try to bring in some money, and nothing seemed to work. And I had a dream. An old man came to me in a dream. This is in some of my books, so it's not new for a lot of your listeners. But an old man came to me in a dream and said, "John, if you would only love more, every limitation in your life would vanish." And I woke up and I thought, God, I'm a loving person. What does this really mean? I didn't know at that time, but love is the energy that opens the channel through which the energy of money flows into manifest form. So I woke Jan up and I said, "Honey, we got to love more, and if we love more, everything's going to be good financially." Well, for 7 days, we loved everything. We loved the floor, we loved the ceiling, we loved the fridge, we loved the stove, we loved God, we loved ourselves, we loved the car. We poured love into everything we saw. It was the most amazing 7 days in our lives. And 2 weeks after that, funds started coming in, just avalanches. Things completely changed in our lives. And I realized then that if you would only love more, that's the secret. That's the real secret of life. And every time that the foundation, for example, the funds begin to slip, that's because we haven't loved more. So I want to throw that out because it's one of the ingredients, one of the parts of that creative process. If we always love more, magical things will happen, guaranteed.
Is that the foundation or fundamental principle behind the 40-day prosperity plan?
I didn't hear that, Laura. Can you repeat that, please?
Is the concept of love at the crux of the 40-day prosperity plan?
Yeah, love is definitely a part of the 40-day prosperity plan. And another thing I want to bring up about this is people have said, I've done the 40 days and my finances have not improved. And I immediately email back and say, they didn't improve because you were working the 40-day plan for money. If you work the 40-day prosperity plan for money, you're not going to get it. The whole purpose of that plan is to change consciousness. And when the consciousness is changed, the money comes in. But if you try to demonstrate money out of the same old consciousness of lack and limitation and scarcity, it ain't going to work. So this is something that we need to really understand. The 40-day prosperity plan's purpose is to change consciousness, to lift it up to a higher frequency so that each individual can be an instrument through which that created energy flows to create the visible form of what we call money.
Well, I hear you, and the messages in the 40-day prosperity plan have nothing to do with money. They all have to do with connecting to this luscious source called God. And I've been I really respect and appreciate that. But, on this show, I've been a little hesitant to bring the word God in. Could you say a little bit more about how important it is to give ourselves permission to think about this source,
Well, if we don't think and have not thought about, have not felt, and have not realized that the great presence and power of this universe is within us, then we are missing the boat. God is, we've run into this. We've had people tell me that there's too much talk about God in some of my books. Well, we say, what would you prefer that we say? Well, the power, you could say the power, or the higher power. But the word God, because so many people came up through traditional religions, and they got burned out on the word God in church and Sunday school. And as they moved into the New Age philosophy, the New Thought programs, they still have a little bit of a hang-up about God. Well, get over it. we're defeating our whole purpose if we refuse to look at this magnificent, universal essence that of all the sum total of all the energies that resides right within us, within our consciousness, and become aware of that presence and that power. We're missing the boat, as I said earlier. We're not in the stream. We're not in the flow. And we're still trying to work out of humanhood, and we are not humans. My book was the Spiritual Philosophy for the New World. We are not human beings. We are expressions of God. We are we are spirit. We are pure, unadulterated spirit. And when we can recognize our true identity, then our lives begin to change, because the identity we live is the identity we experience. And if I live the identity of scarcity, if I live the identity of conflict, if I live the identity of failure by saying I'm experiencing those things, then that's what I'm going to experience. The identity we live is the identity we experience. And that's another part of that discipline that we must have. If we go around talking about our needs, what we're really doing is creating more opportunities to need something. We're creating more needs. And if we talk to other people about our problems, what we're doing is concretizing. We're setting up the problem as a part of the dynamics of our life, when in truth we have no problems that have not been solved. They are only waiting for our acceptance that the problems are not there, that they have been solved, waiting for our acceptance that we have no needs. And what we're doing is standing on the stage of life saying, this is who I am. And the universal law, the divine substance, that feminine part of the Godhead, is listening to every word that we say as the very law of God and producing in our lives the corresponding experiences relating to how we are thinking and feeling. It sounds complicated, Lori, but it really isn't. It's just getting our minds in balance and getting our feeling nature vibrating to that all possible vibration. Everything is possible when we are in tune with that presence within. In the ancient wisdom teachings, the whole idea is that if we are not consciously aware of that presence of God within us, within our consciousness, we have shut the door for a more beautiful and glorious life. And so this is why in so many of the New Thought books and echoing the ancient wisdom, is that we must be consciously aware of who we are. And that's when things begin to happen in our lives.
You know, John, this is a great spot. We're going to head into a break right now, but I'd love to talk about this more, because we were even saying this over the break. I said, I know it in my head. Somehow my body isn't saying yes to it. It's not descending down into my wholeness. And I'd love for us to talk about that. And you had this great sentence about power, taking the power and authority back, and I'd love to talk about that after the break. So thank you, and we'll talk more with John and about the Abundance Book. Hi, and welcome back. And we're talking with John Randolph Price, who is an internationally known lecturer and the author of 18 nonfiction books. And I'm so appreciating the wisdom that you're bringing, John. And I'm wondering, how do we take these ideas, these principles of abundance and prosperity, from your perspective, and bring them into business? Well,
it's happening every day, Lori. Use the example. The Quartus Foundation is a membership organization, and we, as members, we have a number of CEOs, heads of small business, lawyers, doctors, etc. And they are implementing these principles, these new thought principles, into their careers, into their companies, into their practices, and are changing the whole structure of the business environment. It works if you work it. And so many people are beginning to understand now that this really started with Ralph Waldo Emerson back in the 1800s, who laid the foundation for this New Thought movement, which was really a carryover from the ancient wisdom. And see, people, we've had neighbors that say, well, John, what do you do? Well, the first time I met this particular neighbor, I said, well, I write about people with the power. And they said, oh, you must be talking about our politicians. And I said, well, not exactly, but I am writing about people with the power, because that power is that presence of God within them that, when realized and when we are consciously aware of that power, then we open the door, we open the channels through which that creative power goes before us to straighten out every crooked place, to perform that which is ours to do. And people will come up to these individuals and say, well, how did you become so wealthy? Or, I can remember when you were having a lot of physical problems, but now you are so healthy, and so forth and so on. Well, the whole idea is that they change their identity. They begin to implement the principles that people have been talking about for thousands of years, putting them into their lives. So we can say the business environment, the business people are not working behind closed doors. They're working with the windows open and the doors open to prove the principles. And we've told people since 1981, when my book The Super Beings came out, that we can all be super beings if we work the principles. So it's a process that is fun. It's a way of life that is so exciting. And, you see a lot of people with big smiles on their faces because they know who they are and they know what they're doing, and they're living wonderful lives. And this is my philosophy. You're here to live a great life. You're not here to be punished. You're not here to experience guilt. You're not here to be put down by any other segment of society because of what you believe, because what you believe is what's happening in your life. So it's a wonderful, wonderful life when we get with the program.
You said you have this book, Nothing is Too Good to Be True, and it's a grouping of stories. I'm wondering if you could tell us a story of someone, who implemented the principles in Nothing is Too Good to Be True.
Oh, well, let's see. One that I can think of, I don't know if it's in the book or in the Nothing is Too Good to Be True or not, but a man in the Northeast was having great difficulty with his business. He had what we would call today a small establishment, a small operation that would be similar to when Walmart first started. And he had done everything he could to try to build that business, but nothing was really happening. And what he realized later was that his business was a reflection of how he felt, how he thought, and how he lived, and what he felt about himself. That his business literally was a mirror to the way, the shape, tone, and pitch of his consciousness, his feeling nature, and his conscious mind. And as he began to experiment with a different philosophy, things began to change. And what really made the difference is when he gave up all concern about the growth of the business. He used the words, "I really don't care. I'm really not concerned." And what happened was, by not caring, not worrying about anything, he opened the door, he opened his consciousness to be an instrument for Spirit, and once Spirit took over that business, then things changed dramatically. And another quick story as a follow-up to that, we had a meditation group where people would come and talk about their experiences in life. And this lovely young woman said, well, I don't really have any experiences in life because everything is turned to, well, you know what? She said, I said, well, what's the problem? She said, everything is a problem. I have no money. She said, I have no relationship, and everything is really stuck in the mud. And Jan said, I don't care. And I looked at Jan, and I looked at the woman, and I said, I don't care either. And she looked at us, and she says, what do you mean? How can you tell me that you don't care? And I said, because the more you care, the worse the situation is going to be. And Jan says, stand up, and let's walk around the room. And as we do, I want you to say, I don't care. She said, I can't do that. Jan says, yes, you can. So we began to walk around the room. She was saying, I don't care. No, we were saying, I don't care. And she was saying, I don't care. I said, louder. She said, I don't care. And we walked around, and after about 5 minutes of saying, I don't care, she started laughing. And just amazing things began to happen. It was like the whole fog of worry and concern and fear just rolled off of her. And to make a long story short, she went back out into the world. She became a magnificent real estate agent. And the last time we saw her, she was driving a Lexus. And I said, I like your car. And she held up her hand and said, I don't care. And she has a wonderful relationship with a man. She's very, very rich because she stopped caring. And I use that just as an example, is that when we can stop worrying about our lives and start getting rid of the fears and saying, I don't care, then that magnificent presence and power within us takes over, and we turn the driving of our lives over to that higher power. And that's when magnificent things happen.
Wow, I totally feel what you're saying. Do people fight you about that? That, if I'm being empowered, I shouldn't be turning anything over.
I didn't get that.
I'm kind of wondering if, because I've been talking a lot about empowerment. I am being empowered. If I'm acting empowered, why am I turning everything over? How do I do both?
I can barely hear you, but I think what you're saying is that turning over everything, our lives, to a higher power, and what we're really doing is getting ourselves out of the way, because many times our personal sense of life, our personal sense, is overshadowing that spiritual understanding, and what that does is blocks it. So when we turn our power over to that presence within and saying, I don't really care about what's going on in my life from the standpoint of my personal sense, then Spirit literally takes over and makes the decisions for us. And those decisions are always right. If I've answered your question.
It feels, yeah, you have. I guess inside I'm struggling a little bit with, well, where does my power, how am I being empowered in my life?
Well, your power is, there's only one power, and that one power is that presence of God within each individual. When I say within, that is living within each individual's energy field. That is the only power, and that is the only presence. And when we can release what we think of our puny little human power and capture and be a part of that awesome, magnificent, divine power, then it makes everything new. It makes everything more in focus from a spiritual standpoint, because we of ourselves can do nothing. Oh, we can create a mess. We can do all sorts of things that can bring about suffering and deprivation, scarcity, illness. We can do all of that. But as long as we are relying on that Spirit within to reshape our lives and to bring everything into that divine rhythm, then we're moving into a more fruitful life with a great harvest. I know it's sometimes the semantics, it's the words that we use in books and on a radio show right now, but if we can contemplate, meditate, and listen to that inner guidance, we'll know what to do and how to do it. And what we can do then is to let go of all false beliefs and get on that bandwagon within and fly across the desert into the great green forest where everything is in harmony. Because that's the law, that's the will of God, is harmony for each and every individual.
I totally feel that. I totally agree. You know, John, we're coming into our final break here, and when we come back from the break, I guess I'm going to ask you, in your life, how are you experiencing tangible prosperity? And, of course, what recommendations do you have for people who have been on the path to really start to feel that full gamut of prosperity? So stay tuned, everyone, because we're going to talk a little bit more about putting real practical into effect here. Hi, and welcome back. And we're talking with John Price. And, John, I have a couple of last questions for you before we end our time together. And the first one is, I know so many beautiful people who have huge hearts, who are incredibly generous, I think who have embraced, the Godhead essence incredibly, but yet they haven't experienced that full prosperity of actual, money, and they're living quite poverty-stricken on one level, even though they're incredibly prosperous on another. What advice would you give?
Well, what we have to understand, and I'm sure you do, is that everything that happens in our lives, regardless of how we look at it, is a reflection of our state of consciousness. The great philosopher Emmett Fox said, life is a state of consciousness. That everything that we do, everything that we feel, everything that we see is a reflection of how we are thinking and feeling and seeing. This is an absolute. In other words, it's not sometimes or whatever. It is an absolute truth that our life is a reflection of our consciousness. So if someone says, I am experiencing shortages, lack, and limitation, the only thing you can say is that then your consciousness is one of lack, limitation, and scarcity. And when we can work, and I say work daily, to change our consciousness, then our lives change. Because if we don't have enough money to live comfortably, I'm not talking about being rich as Rockefeller, so to speak. I'm talking about enough to pay the bills and to live a natural life of comfort. If we don't have that, then we have to go to work and have to go to work immediately. Now, when this so-called economy began to drop, Jan and I began to stop watching television. We didn't want to read or see anything that would have an effect on our consciousness, because in God's economy, there is nothing but abundance. There is nothing but abundance. There is no scarcity. There is no lack. There is no futility. There is always plenty, plenty, plenty. Abundance is everywhere. Success is everywhere. Love is everywhere. And if it takes 2 hours in the morning to get that across to the human mind, then we do it, because I don't want to think about anything that's going to limit me. And if I comes up that, for example, my book sales drop or the royalties are not what I was expecting, I realize that is a reflection of my consciousness. And so I go to work. Abundance is everywhere. There is no lack. There is no scarcity. There are no shortages. And on and on and on to where I feel that inner click, that inner vibration that says, all is well. Things are okay now. And then that's when the funds begin to flow again. We can't just do an affirmative prayer or make an affirmation in the mornings and expect everything on the daily basis to be peaches and cream, until we can once and for all totally realize that presence of God within us and the power that is eternally flowing through us. Then we must do our part. And that part is to work daily to change consciousness and to keep it on a higher level. And I had a good friend that he no longer corresponds with him. He says, that's asking too much, John, and I don't want to have to do that. He says, you're taking away all the fun in life by putting my nose to the grindstone. And I said, no, I'm not doing anything. It's all up to you. I said, I've known people who came into this life with a leg up, so to speak, and it only took a little tweaking in consciousness for them to move into a higher dynamic so that they really didn't have to pray anymore. It was all a part of that natural process. But for most people, it's that dedication and that discipline to change and maintain that change in consciousness. But, as my wife Jan says, it can be a fun process. It doesn't have to be, I've got to go affirm that I am a rich person. No, we don't do that. It's how we feel. And if we can feel that presence within as the wealth of the universe, feel that power within as the awesome power that goes before us to create out of the substance and manifest the dollars, manifest new opportunities for career, manifest the wholeness in mind and body, then life becomes an adventure, an exciting adventure. If I'm making myself clear, I hope so.
Absolutely. So it's not wrong to want for your life to come up aces?
It not only wrong, heavens no. In fact, that's why we're here. We came into this incarnation to make sure that we have the most abundant, fulfilling life that we could possibly have. We're here to prove the presence, to prove the abundance of God, to prove the bounty, to prove the harvest, to prove that we are supposed to have radiantly healthy bodies. We are supposed to have finances in the supreme category. We are supposed to be living with true place success, loving what we do and doing what we love. That's the will of God, and that is the way it's supposed to be.
Amen. I agree.
I'm
in.
I'm not a preacher. I'm not
you're
even
great.
a minister. So Jen says to me, Jen, I grew up in the Baptist church, and she says, sometimes you sound like a Baptist preacher.
Well, it works for you, so keep it up. I feel just so grateful that you're here, and I feel really, really reinvigorated. And I loved so many of the things you said today, from it works if you work the process to it's all there, and all we have to do is let it flow. And that's one of the things that the 40-Day Prosperity Plan, which I highly encourage everyone to pick up the book and start using. I actually was thinking I'm buying it for Christmas for everyone, because it's such a beautiful gift, and it shifts your thinking about how to go about making it happen to just letting it all flow and happen through you, that I just feel like a weight is lifted off your shoulders.
Lori, we have so many case histories from people who have worked the 40-Day Prosperity Plan and have come into, as to use their many expressions, have come into a great sum of money. That is not a one-time thing, but is on a continuous basis. Even though they were not working for money, they were working for a change in consciousness. When they changed their consciousness, the money came.
I believe that. I've seen it, and I felt it, and I certainly hope that our listeners take advantage of this book, of this opportunity. But for sure, the power that we all have to create this amazing experience for ourselves, and I do believe it will change the world. I absolutely agree with you 100%, and I'm so grateful that you're here and sharing your wisdom. And maybe I hope you come back and we'll talk about more stories about how people are just making so much change with the 40-Day Prosperity Plan.
Well, it'd be my pleasure, Lori. Just being with you has been an honor, and I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. And again, if people want to read more about what John's work, it's Quartus at Quartus, QUARTUS.org. And I look forward to calling you, John, with many more prosperity stories.
Okay.
Thank you so much again. And my best to Jan and your work is with the foundation. It sounds like amazing work. John, can I ask one more question? Which book would you recommend I read next?
Read next?
Yeah, which one of yours?
Oh, I think Nothing is Too Good to Be True.
Okay, I'm getting it. I'll call you. Maybe you'll come on and we'll talk about that one.
Okay. You let me know.
I will. Thanks, John.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.